The oceans. They are so close to us, yet they are mostly uncharted. Undeniably, extended areas of the oceans and several oceanic depths are not yet explored by humans. Indeed, we have more information regarding the stars of our galaxy compared to our own oceans. For example, 12 humans have set foot on the moon, yet only 3 have reached the deepest parts of the oceans, as for instance the Mariana Trench, which is larger than the height of Mount Everest, the largest mountain peak of the world. More specifically, the Challenger depth, the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, is 11,000 meters deep, whereas the height of Mount Everest is only 8,800 meters in height. This means that you will have to dive the height of the biggest mountain of the surface of Earth and another 3,000 meters to reach the bottom of it. So, it is only natural that the ocean still hides so many mysteries. Many tales have emerged about the oceans, from lost cities or even submerged continents, like the Atlantis, to the presence of giant monsters, like the mythical Leviathan, to Kraken, to humanoid whales, and of course, the mermaids. It should be noted that several of the so-called mythical sea creatures are in reality regular normal sea animals, which are living unnoticed from the human eye for millennia, most probably because their territories are either too deep or too difficult to find. One of these creatures is the giant squid, which was initially considered to be a monster, but only recently was revealed to be a normal sea animal. So, that brings the question, how many other sea monsters are in reality just other species that are too difficult to find? In this video, we will analyze the most important sea creatures, most of them deriving from myths and legends, but several of them found to exist or at least existed at some point in the past. In this first category, we are going to examine mythological monsters. The first sea monster in this category is the Sirens. Sirens are mostly found in the ancient Greek mythology, one of the earliest mentioned in Homer's Odyssey, where sirens are described as female sea demons that allure sailors by their looks and songs and then they kill and eat them. Ulysses' crew in the epic poem Odyssey travel near them, the crew having covered their ears, while Ulysses being able to hear them was tied on the mast of the ship in order not to be allured and captivated by them. Mermaids, on the other hand, were created in the Assyrian mythology but were popularized later in Western Europe. Mermaids might have been inspired by the Greek sirens. It is said that they were half human, half fish, from the waist and down. They are usually pretty women or benevolent nature. There are several sites of mermaids even to these days, most of them, however, are discredited. Some authors suggest that they exist, being the descendants of the people of Atlantis. Scylla and Charybdis appear in the epic poem of Odyssey. Both of those monsters used to live in the opposite banks of narrow water channels, from which Odyssey and his crew also dared to go through. The strait in which these monsters lived is said to be that of Messina, located between Italy and the island of Sicily. The story goes that Scylla and Charybdis stood in giant rocks, Charybdis creating huge whirlpools. Scylla was most probably a type of malevolent mermaid, while Charybdis was a giant sea monster, its characteristics not precisely described. Leviathan is a sea creature mentioned in religious texts having characteristics of a reptile. Leviathan is currently synonymous to large creatures and in modern Hebrew means a whale. It is mentioned in the Old Testament and in the Tanakh. In Christian texts, Leviathan is a symbol of evil powers or Satan himself. Several contemporary sources talk about humans having encountered and seen this creature. Bakunawa is a sea monster in the Filipino mythology, which is often depicted as a giant reptilian monster. It lives in the seas and it is believed to cause the eclipse of the sun. It is depicted as a giant sea serpent with a mouth as large as a lake, a red tongue, gills, rope-like structures at each side and 2 sets of wings, the one being larger and as grey while the other being smaller, located beneath its body. Syrein Croin is a sea monster mentioned in the Scottish Gaelic mythology. It was thought to be big enough to eat 7 whales at once. It was supposed to be a giant monster, but it could disguise itself as a tiny fish in order to avoid detection. It is categorized as a sea serpent. Iku Torso is a sea monster mentioned in the Finnish epic of Kalevala. It is said to look like an octopus or a walrus since its appearance is unknown. It was the god of war in the Finnish mythology. Hormugendr is a sea monster mentioned in Norse mythology, described as a sea serpent. The creature was described to be enormous in size, being able to surround the earth with its tail, which it still holds. When this monster loses its grip of his tail, Ragnarok, the apocalypse of Norse mythology, will commence. Umibozu is a Japanese mythology spirit living in the oceans. In the seas, it obliges sailors to provide it with a barrel. The monster proceeds to fill it with seawater to drown them. The advice given to sailors is to give the monster a bottomless barrel. It has been thought that this sea monster may represent the souls of people who have no one to look after the graves and thus take refuge to the sea. The creature looks like a saved Buddhist monk having a round head and black skin and 2 such giant eyes. The next category of sea monsters is associated with sightings. The Kraken is a giant sea monster inhabiting the coast of Norway and Greenland. This legendary creature may originated from sightings of giant squids that can grow up to 12 to 15 meters in length. It should be noted, however, that the original tales do not mention the existence of tentacles, but an appearance closely resembling that of a whale or a crab. Because of the alleged size and fearsome appearance of Kraken, it is also described in several fictions. There are multiple sightings of Kraken. The sea monk has been described as a creepy sea creature seen the eastern coast of the Danish island of Zealand in 1546. It was described as a fish which resembled a monk. There are several sightings of this creature, most witnesses agreeing that it resembled a giant squid or an angel shark. The devil whale has been described as a giant white whale sighted multiple times 100 years ago. It is said to be huge and able to devour large ships. One of the reports was filmed in 1908 by Japanese whalers. It is said to be the inspiration for the novel of Moby Dick. Last but not least, we will mention an interesting creature known as Ningen, or simply as the humanoid whale. It is mostly seen in the Arctic regions and in Japan. It is said to stand on its back legs. The creature appears to be white and around 20 to 30 meters in size. In most reports, it is described as human-like in shape with legs and arms and 5-fingered hands. Sometimes it is described as having fins or a large mermaid-like tail instead of legs. The only visible facial features are the eyes and mouth. In modern reports, it is described as a submarine, while on getting closer, its shape is irregular and not man-made, disappearing quickly under the water. Today it is mostly considered as an urban legend, and there is no solid proof of its existence. Sea reptiles, or sea serpents, is a category of sea monsters. The most important sighting of a sea reptile is that of the Loch Ness Monster, which is a story for another time, since there are so many things to tell about this creature. Some sightings are the one of the Daedalus ship in 1848, which saw a giant lizard creature. Another sighting was in 1877 in the waters of northern Sicily, sketched by a witness, and another in 1905 from the naturalist Michael Nicol, described as a sea creature with a large neck resembling dinosaurs. The most widely known sighting was that of 1964, photographed by the French photographer Robert Le Sirec, in which he tells that the shadow on the depth of the sea resembled an injured sea reptile. Most of these sightings, however, can be easily dismissed as a wrongful vision, an optical illusion, or simply as over-imagination. There are also many other known sea creatures which resemble eels or whales. To sum up, there are many mysteries in the sea, but the size of the oceans makes it almost impossible to find adequate explanations. Most of the sighted creatures have been proven to be illusions, but some reports are still open to investigation. The seas hide many mysteries and nobody knows anything for sure. Only time can tell. Don't forget that some creatures which were initially thought to be that of our imagination were shown to exist, like the Coeliocanthus fish, the giant squid, and other amazing creatures of the depths of the ocean.